There was a man in ancient Rome whose owner once grabbed his leg, just to prove a point, and slowly began to twist it. The man looked at him calmly and said, "You are going to break it." More twisting. "You are going to break it." Snap.
And then the man said, without flinching, "Did I not tell you?" That man was Epictetus, a slave, a man who owned nothing, controlled nothing, not even his own body.
And he became one of the most important philosophers who ever lived, not despite that moment, because of what he understood in it. And what he understood is the exact reason you keep getting in your own way.
Let me tell you about Epictetus properly, because most people skip the part that matters. He was born around 50 AD in Hierapolis, modern-day Turkey, born into slavery. His name literally means acquired. He was property, purchased by a man named Epictetus, a freedman who had himself been enslaved and who became a powerful secretary under Emperor Nero.
Now, Epictetus wasn't the worst master in Rome. He actually allowed Epictetus to study philosophy under a man named Musonius Rufus, one of the great Stoic teachers of the era. So this slave, this piece of property, spent his days absorbing one of the most powerful frameworks for living ever devised. And here's where it gets interesting. Somewhere in that study, maybe during a beating, maybe during a cold night on a stone floor, Epictetus figured something out. Something that his master would never understand. There are things in this world you control, and things you don't. That's it. That's the whole game. Your master can take your freedom. He can take your health, your comfort, your family. He can even, as we saw, break your leg. But there is one thing, one single thing that no man can take from you without your consent. How you respond, your judgment, your will, your inner orientation toward what happens to you.
Epictetus called this the hegemonikon, the ruling faculty, the command center of your soul. And he spent the rest of his life, even after he was freed, even after he became one of Rome's most celebrated teachers, teaching men how to protect that one thing.
Now, why does any of this matter to you, sitting here in 2025? Because you are not a slave, but I'd bet anything that you are behaving like one.
Self-sabotage. Let's actually name what it is, because we throw that word around without precision. Self-sabotage is when you know what you should do and you don't do it, or you start it and you destroy it before it can succeed. You get the opportunity and you ghost the follow-up email.
You start the diet on Monday, and by Thursday, you've eaten your way through regret. You meet someone you actually like, and you find a reason to push them away. You're 3 weeks into a new discipline, and then you blow it on a random Tuesday night and tell yourself it doesn't count anymore. Sound familiar?
Here's what psychology usually tells you. It's fear of success, low self-worth, attachment styles, trauma responses. And look, those things are real. I'm not dismissing them. But Epictetus would cut straight to something those frameworks often miss. He would say, you don't have a behavior problem, you have a belief problem. Specifically, you have a confused belief about what is yours and what is not yours. In the Enchiridion, which is basically his handbook, dictated to his student Arian, Epictetus opens with this. Some things are in our control, and others not. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and our own actions. Things not in our control are body, reputation, command, and all that is not our own doing.
Simple. Almost too simple. But here's what he's actually saying. Most men are walking around treating external things as if they define their worth. The job title, the body, the relationship status, the approval, and then treating their own inner choices as if they're helpless over them.
They've got it exactly backwards. You cannot fully control your income. You can control your effort. You cannot control whether she likes you. You can control whether you show up authentically. You cannot control what people think of you. You can control who you choose to be.
When you mix those up, when you treat external outcomes as essential to your identity,
you become fragile. You become hostage to outcomes. And when you are hostage to an outcome, self-sabotage isn't weakness, it's self-protection.
You blow up the job interview before they can reject you. You end the relationship before she can leave. You quit the project before the world can judge it. You are not broken. You are doing a completely logical thing, given your completely wrong belief about where your worth lives.
Epictetus didn't just diagnose the disease, he gave a specific framework for curing it. He called it the 3 disciplines, and almost nobody talks about these. Let me break them down in plain language. Discipline 1. Desire and aversion. This is about wanting the right things. Epictetus says, only desire what is in your control, your choices, your effort, your character, and only avoid what is within your control, like your own cowardice, your own dishonesty, your own laziness.
The moment you start desperately needing an outcome that lives outside yourself, the deal, the approval, the result, you've already lost your footing. This is why Marcus Aurelius, who studied Epictetus obsessively, kept writing to himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Most of your self-sabotage begins here. You want the outcome so badly, and you're so terrified of not getting it, that the very wanting becomes the problem.
Discipline 2. Action. This one is subtle, and it matters enormously. Epictetus says, take action, but with what he calls a reservation. You commit fully to the process, and you hold the outcome loosely. He uses the image of an archer. You aim perfectly. You draw with full strength. You release with precision.
The wind takes the arrow elsewhere. You are not a failure. You did your part. The rest is not yours. This is the philosophy behind what modern psychology now calls process goals versus outcome goals. You control the process. You trust the process. And you stop staking your identity on the result. Think about how many times you've self-sabotaged because the outcome felt uncertain. Not because you weren't capable, but because you couldn't stand the exposure of trying and possibly failing. The discipline of action says, try fully, hold lightly. Discipline 3. Judgment and assent. This is the one that will change your internal life the most. Every moment, you are receiving impressions from the world. Someone criticizes you. A plan falls apart. You look in the mirror and you don't like what you see. Those impressions hit you. That part isn't a choice.
What you do next is the only choice that matters. Epictetus called this assent, whether you agree with the story the impression tells you. Your brain says, you're not good enough. Do you agree? Your gut says, this is pointless. Give up. Do you agree?
The self-sabotaging man says yes automatically. He doesn't even notice he's been given a choice. The philosopher, the free man, pauses, examines, and decides whether this impression deserves his agreement. He asks, is this true? Is this useful? Is this mine to accept? This is not toxic positivity. This is not affirmations. This is forensic self-examination, the hardest, most disciplined thing a person can do. Here's the part that usually gets left out of Stoic content. Epictetus didn't say this was easy. He was a slave. He'd had his leg broken. He'd seen men destroyed by power, by vanity, by circumstances far beyond anything most of us will face. And he said, this is a practice. Every day, every moment. He wasn't describing a one-time insight that sets you free. He was describing a daily discipline, a forge that you walk into every morning that burns off everything that isn't yours.
The reason you keep self-sabotaging isn't because you lack willpower. It's because you haven't built the practice. You haven't spent time consistently asking, what is actually in my control right now? You haven't trained yourself to separate the impression from the assent.
You haven't practiced wanting the right things, the effort, the character, the process, instead of just needing the outcome. Epictetus said something that I want you to sit with. Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life. This is not resignation. This is total accountability. You can't control the world, but you are fully responsible for your response. And when you truly absorb that, when it gets into your bones, the self-sabotage starts to dissolve. Not because your life gets easier, because you stop needing it to be. Epictetus was freed from slavery eventually. His master, or some benefactor, granted him his freedom. He moved to Rome and started teaching. Then the Emperor Domitian banned philosophers from Rome. Epictetus was exiled to a small town called Nicopolis.
And there, in what most men would call ruin, no status, no city, no imperial approval, he opened a school. And men came from all over the Roman Empire to sit at his feet. Because a man who cannot be broken by anything external carries a kind of gravity that the whole world feels.
That's what's on offer here. Not a hack, not a shortcut, a different relationship with yourself. One where your worth isn't riding on the outcome, where you can try fully because you've stopped fearing failure as a verdict on who you are, where self-sabotage loses its function because you're no longer trying to protect something fragile.
The leg can be broken, the man cannot. That's the work. If this landed, hit subscribe. We go deep on men's psychology, ancient philosophy, and what it actually takes to build a life you respect. The Better Man Project. See you next time.